50 points to 10. That's a bit of a hiding. The French have gone down to Italy and, put on a big old bonus point win over the Italians. I'll talk also briefly about, because I've seen the Scotland and England game, so I'll talk about the wider implications of the Six Nations probably briefly at some point. So if you haven't seen the Scotland-England result, beware of spoilers, which will be incoming shortly. So, yeah, there you go. But big French win over the Italians is the story of this one. I'll go over some of the key events and the stats. It's a bit of a disappointing one for the Italians. Obviously, getting beaten by 40 points at home. Captain BG at the end of the game said, it's hard for him to really talk about positives when you've just conceded 50 points at home. But there were, especially early on, the Italians were getting some quick ruck ball. They were recycling well. Varney was hitting runners who were hitting the line at pace. So there were certainly some positives, but over the course of the 80, it just wasn't there. Some of the French tries were absolute magic, and that's something this French side can do to you. They've got absolutely star-talented players who can unlock a defence. On the other hand, some of them were a bit easy, which is disappointing. But it starts actually with Garbisi doing a chip and chase, Brex getting a line break. So the Italians on attack started pretty lively, exciting stuff from the Italians. But the first try was French. It was Thomas evading tackles like nobody's business. France going through some phases, and Cretin just essentially reaching over after they got close enough to the line for him to put it over. And 7-0 early to France. Jalibert with a penalty to make it 10-0 after 10 minutes. So a point a minute start from the French. But it's probably like after that initial burst from the Italians, then a bit of French play. The Italians came back into the game a wee bit after that. They had a line-out chance in the French half after getting a penalty. But they messed up the line-out throw. It was stolen, which was, you can say, good work from the French. Also poor work from the Italians at line-out. The Italians went 19 phases on 18 minutes. So 10 minutes without any French scoring. They go 19 phases. Eventually they win a penalty and kick it to make it 10 points to 3. So they were kind of, after starting the game well, French really punishing them. And they kind of started to come back up to that French level. But the maintenance of it wasn't there. 26 minutes is Ficou's try. A French maul was stopped, but Dupont put a kick through. And Ficou just virtually unopposed on his way through. That's one of the ones that I mentioned about being too easy. Now, I got to give credit to Dupont as well, because the kick didn't look that feasible with the Italian defensive line coming up. He managed to get a kick through where he shouldn't have been able to get a kick through. But it was a pretty easy one for Ficou. He won't score many easier ones than that. And then he had another try assist, Dupont, for Vincent, not too long later. That one was Dupont's kick through, a loose bounce, so no Italian guys able to gather it because of the wicked bounce. Dupont regathers it, and then as he gets tackled, pops the pass up the wrong direction, but Vincent managed to change his line and grab the ball. That one had the commentators all over Dupont and talking about his praises, but I can't argue with him, man. The guy is talented. Where other guys wouldn't have been able to get that pass away, Dupont gets the pass away. The guy he's just too good, man. What do you keep saying about the guy? You can only talk him up so much before it starts to sound old, but he's very, very good. 24 points to 3. At that point, Franco Smith must have had enough, because he calls off both his props, and they're not injured on like 31 minutes. He calls off both the props. And it's not something you see that often in rugby, because you can't replace guys once you've replaced them. Some other sports, like sometimes I watch ice hockey, and if a team goes a bunch of goals down, they'll pull the goalie and put the backup goalie in, just to be like, right, we've got to switch something up. Franco Smith pulled a bit of that, which is pretty rare. Tactical change for his props. And then a couple of minutes later, it looks like it's worked, because Monte Ioane goes in for his first try in the Italian jersey on the left wing. Varney picks the blind side, dummies, beats the first guy, dummies again, beats the second guy, pops it to Ioane, who goes over for a try, shows a bit of gas, but it's called off because of a forward pass. The final pass from Varney to Ioane was forward. It probably was marginally forward, but I kind of wish it had been not forward because it was a brilliant little move. Like, he got Dupont on the other end, causing absolute havoc for France. It'd be nice to see the Italian 9 do the same thing. But yeah. Garabisi goes off for an HIA. Kana comes on, but Garabisi does come back on in the second half. So good for him. He looks good. Like, he's a good runner. Some of his passes I find a bit loopy. Like, he likes to float them, which often means slower than kind of a nice, crisp, flat pass. I don't know. Zanon comes off in the second half, so Kana ends up coming back on. He comes back on in the midfield. 46, Thomas goes close on a kick through for France. He maybe could have had a hat-trick. He still gets 2, but Trua did well to cover through for Italy on defence. 48 for Dulin is one of the easier tries, along with maybe the Vincent try, although that one was a bit of a wicked bounce. Maybe the Fiku try. Maybe this one's the easiest. The Italians kick long. Dulin gets it in backfield for France. He runs it back, passes it to Villiers. Villiers chips it through, and Dulin just runs and regathers it, as simple as you like. So one of the easier ones, just too easy is the note that I wrote. There was an Italian guy on the ground injured, so they did have one less man, but I don't think it made much of a difference. And Maya, I think, ends up not coming back on because he goes off 31 points to 3. Dupont finally gets a try for himself on 52. It's a line-out move. They just go wide. This time it's Teddy Thomas who kind of creates the try with, with a gap that opens up. He just walks straight through it, and it's 38-3. Thomas gets the first of his tries. Jalibert the man avoiding tackles in that one. Line break for Jalibert. Gets it to Dupont. Gets it to Thomas. Over for a try. 45-3. Now, 45-3 after 56 minutes is looking particularly hairy for Italy. Now, the fact they only concede 5 more points in the rest of the game, you maybe take as a slight positive. Goodness me, I mean, it could have been more. It could have been 60, 70 if they go along at that pace. But Italy do have a decent stretch of the game. Like, they score a try. Sperandio gets his try on 64. So there's a 10-minute period, 15-minute period where Italy are doing all right. That one they checked for the TMO as well, but it was given, and Mbanda managed to pounce on a loose ball. They get it to the right wing. He chips and regathers. Nice bit of an individual try for Sperandio. Good conversion as well from Garbisi. It sneaks in the left upright, and it's 45 points to 10. Final try is to Thomas. It's a scrum, and they get it out wide to him. Some quick hands. They missed that conversion, so it's 50 points to 10. Yeah, man, there's not much you can say other than that. The French side is very good. The Italians, in glimpses, look okay. But in other periods, they look poor. So it's a tough one. France are a good side, so they certainly will make other sides look pretty poor. More games into the Six Nations will be the better context into, were France that good? Was Italy that bad? Is it a combination of the two? We'll have to wait and see. Possession 57-43 to Italy. Territory 54-46 to Italy. Clean breaks is 7 apiece. That looks all right. Then you look at the tackling percentage, 76-90. So obviously France was tackling at 90%. Very, very efficient defense. Italy's 76 is really, really poor for international level rugby, but it's a bit of a gap in the class of the two teams. Turnovers won 7-2 in favour of France. I think 7 at the breakdown or tackle, and then 2 at the line out. Penalties conceded 12-9, so Italy conceding more. Handling errors 13-7, Italy with more, so that's one of the big letdowns for them. Sometimes they do a bit of good work, let themselves down with a handling error, but also remember the French guys are putting pressure on to make those errors. Ioane ends up with 115 run meters and beats 6 tacklers, but doesn't get credited with that try because it was forward. Dupont gets player of the match. He has 1 try, 4 assists, 62 run meters, 284 kick meters, and he only played like 59 minutes. He goes off and has a rest. Puts his feet up, literally. Willems is 16 from 16 tackles. Villiers at one point bumped off one of the Italian locks. He's a bit of a pocket rocket. I did write a note. I admire the Italian quick passing game, but overall, it's just not enough. Now, with England losing to Scotland at home, because France were facing the prospect of maybe a deciding game against England. They've still got that away game against England, but the fact that England have already dropped the game makes the prospects of a French Six Nations title look that little bit closer. But then again, Scotland may fancy their chances based on that result. Italy will just be looking to eke out a win, man. It's like 28 losses in a row in the Six Nations, I think. So, and we're still yet to see where those two teams are at in terms of Wales and Ireland. We'll see that tomorrow. But yeah, it's an interesting one. The French guys in the post-match were talking a lot about the points difference and how costly it was last year. They talked to one of the coaches and they talked to one of the players, and both of them mentioned the same thing. We were conscious of the scoreline being important, so they wanted to put on more points. They may even be slightly disappointed they didn't put on more points because, like I mentioned, there's a big period after Thomas' try of 56. They don't score any more points until his next one on 73. So, and they concede 7 during that time as well. So it's a bit harsh to be saying anything critical about a 50-10 victory, but still room for improvement. And it's hard to say much positive about an Italian loss by 40 points at home. But like I mentioned, there were some glimpses, especially more early on in the game when things were a bit more even. But overall, very good win from the French. I kind of went into this one knowing the result because I'd done the live stream with the England and Scotland game, and I asked them to mention a bunch of scorelines, so I didn't know which one was the real one, but the most common one people mentioned was 50 points to 10, so I kind of knew this was going to be the scoreline. If it had been an upset, people would have definitely mentioned it all the time. So, yeah, pretty convincing. Pretty convincing. What do you guys reckon? Does this put France in the box seat for the Six Nations title? Are Italy all that bad? Are they going to get likewise trounced by the other teams? Or do you think they may be able to be a bit more competitive in the coming games if they can just reduce the number of errors? Anyway, you guys have any thoughts? Talk to you again soon. See you later.